Hi, I'm Leo and welcome to Scoldemy. In this second CSS animation tutorial, we'll be discussing CSS transition. Normally, when you apply a certain style to your elements, the change takes place immediately. For example, when I hover on this picture, you notice that it moves immediately. Now, the CSS transition allow you to kind of determine how fast or how slow you want this transition to occur. Now, the CSS transitions enable you to smoothly animate CSS properties from an original position to a new position, or from an original value to a new value over time. So in this tutorial, we're going over these transition properties, starting with the transition property to the transition delay, and then I'll show you the transition shorthand. Alright, this is a very simple and easy video. Alright guys, at the end of this tutorial, if you think the tutorial was helpful, please hit the like button, and if you have anything to say about any part of the video, just leave a comment, and if you're new, please consider subscribing for more updates. Alright, we'll start with the transition property. Now, basically, the transition property tells the browser the name of the CSS property that you want to transition. Now, when you go to my code here, you will see my transition property is transform. Now, for the transform, I want to translate this picture. That means I want to move it. Alright, if you don't understand the CSS transform, you can check out my first CSS animation tutorial where I talked about the CSS transform in detail. Now, when I save and go back to my browser and reload, you'll notice that this picture is going to move. Now let's say I want to rotate this picture. I'll come to this transform here and I'll change it to rotate. Now let's say I want it to go in 1100 degrees. I'll put my 1100 deg. Now when I save and go back and hover on this picture, you'll notice that it's going to rotate. So we use the CSS property, the transition property, to tell the browser the name of the CSS property that we want to transition. Now when you want to transition more than one property, you just put a comma and you put the second property. Alright guys, that's how to use the transition property. Now next we'll move to transition duration. Alright, the transition duration describes the time it will take to transition from one state to another. Now it takes values in seconds or milliseconds. Now let's say I put 1400 milliseconds here. When I save and go back, notice that the time is going to take more time for this picture to move, and in other words, it's going to be slower. Alright, let me reload this and watch what happens when I hover. Now you can see it takes more time to move from the initial position to the final position. So that's what we do with the transition duration. Let's say I increase this to 2000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds. Now when I save and reload, notice it's going to take longer time for this picture to move to the final position. So that's what you do with the CSS, with the transition duration. Alright, next we'll go to the transition timing function. Alright, the CSS timing function provides a way to control the pace of the transition. Now let's say you want it to start off slow and then get faster, or start off fast and end slower, or whatever way you want this transition to go, you do that using the transition timing function. Alright, when I come here, we have different types of transition timing function. You have your cubic Bezier. Here you kind of use a graph to determine how you want it to go, and you have your ease, which starts off slow, then speeds up, then slows down, and then ends very slowly. or your linear, the linear proceeds at the same speed throughout the transition, while your ease in starts slow and then speeds up. Your ease out starts fast and slows down, while your easing out is kind of faster in the middle. All right, I'll go to my code here. Let's say I wanted to ease in. I'll put my ease in, and when I save and go back to my picture and reload, you'll notice that it's going to ease in. Alright, you can actually check what transition you want to on your browser using the inspect elements. So basically you right click and go to inspect elements, and now when this shows up, you click on the element and then click on this transition timing function. Now you can see the various functions. This is ease in, ease out, ease in, out. Now when I choose ease in, I can choose linear, which means it's going to proceed with the same speed. Now watch what happens when I hover, it goes with the same speed. Now you can also choose something like quantic. Now when I hover, it's going to start off slow and then pick up in the middle. Now you can also alter that using this graph. That's the cubic Bezier. You use the graph to tell how you want the transition to be. Alright, that's that for the transition timing function, and now we'll move to alright, for the transition shorthand. First you put the property that you want to transition, and then you put the duration and the timing function and your delay. Now you don't put a comma in between, you just write them. Let's say for example I want to change the color, I will write color here, and the duration, that's how long I want this to happen. Let's say 2000 milliseconds. And the timing function, let's say I want it to ease in, I'll put ease in. And my delay, let's say 300 milliseconds. Now that's how you use the function. You put your property, then the duration, your timing function, and the delay. Alright, thanks guys for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video where we'll talk about the keyframes.